Yes, let's bring in Cryptmaster Chucky. Chucky, come on in.
I'm
Hi.
here.
Yes. Now, is Cryptmaster Chucky your birth name?
It's my first stage name, and Chucky's my second stage name. Yes.
Okay. All right. So, with a name like that, you must be interested in Halloween a little bit, right?
Slightly. I have two kind of full vocations all around entertainment, and one of them is horror. It's haunted houses. It's taking tours for people overseas who love the spooky stuff, and it's also a new book that I just wrote. So yeah, horror is a big part of my life and a big part of the things I do.
So, you must have had a very traumatic childhood, I imagine, that created this fascination with horror.
So is that the case for the millions of people who love horror? They've all had traumatized childhoods.
Well, how did your fascination start?
That's a great question, and I actually write the story in my book. My mom, this was ages ago, as I'm like Dracula, over 100 years old, and in those days, television was such that if you wanted to watch a movie, you couldn't pick it up on Netflix or on DVDs or rent it in any which way. You'd have to hope that it showed at a certain time, and if it showed, you'd either watch it or you were screwed because they didn't repeat it. Or it was a movie, and if you didn't have TV Guide, forget it. You'd never know what was on. But one night, a movie called Bride of Frankenstein with Boris Karloff and Elsa Lanchester was on the $1 Million Movie. And growing up in the Bronx and watching the New York channels, the $1 Million Movie would show at 7 or 8 o'clock at night on one of Channel 9, whatever it was. And then it would repeat every night for a week, the same movie. And
Wow.
that could have been Gone with the Wind or Mutiny on a Bounty or whatever the classic movie was. But this happened to be Bride of Frankenstein. And at 4 or 5, she said, "It's time you watched a movie with me that's a little different than most of the movies we watch." And I said, okay. And then I heard the first notes of the movie, and I was this. I did not want to watch this movie. And I sat there with my head tucked into her bosom, and I would not open my eyes and look at a single scene. Well, Amber, wouldn't you know, it's on the next night, and Mom says we're watching it again. And this time she gets a blanket. This time she gets popcorn, a little brainwash material. And the next night, I'm kind of watching it like this, through looking at it a little and not really absorbing what's going on. The third night, I watch it with my eyes open. And on the fourth day, I said, "Mom, what time is it on? I can't wait to see it again." So I was hooked by Bride of Frankenstein, but it took a little coaxing, a little coercing. And then what we did was every day we'd look in the TV Guide to see if a Bela Lugosi movie was on, or a Wolfman movie was on, or one of those Universal horror films, which is what you're weaned on, and then it leads to everything else. So that was my history of falling in love with horror, kind of not wanting to, but loving that I did.
So, as a kid with this obsession or early fascination, how were you treated around the neighborhood? Did you share it with your playmates or?
What we shared, I remember, was trading cards, like the baseball cards. There would be horror cards, and there was also models, monster models, and I would get all of those, and I would assemble them, and other friends would do the same, and we'd share and show each other. And then we also bought monster magazines, and I don't know if I could show this from the book. I don't know if this comes out here, but this is me, Amber, as a kid. And you can see the monster models. It's a miracle that I have this photo. And I wish I sent it into you before so you could have showed it better. It's me playing with the creature from the Black Lagoon and all these monster models. And behind me, there's a Beatles poster, which is crazy because those are, like music growing up, and the monster stuff were two of my biggest passions.
Yeah, I will be talking to you in a future episode about the Beatles. So,
Yes.
all right. So you're growing up. Halloween. What, Drew? What was your first memories of Halloween? What did you like to go as?
So that's crazy because I don't remember doing Halloween in the Bronx. I guess when you grow up in the Bronx, everything is so scary that Halloween really doesn't have that big of a meaning. Just stepping out the door and seeing the people down the street on Tremont Avenue is probably scarier than anything Halloween. So I don't think Mom and Dad gave me the baskets to go around until we came to Connecticut. By then I was, I don't know, like 10 or 11, and I was a bigger husky kid, and people were saying, hey, isn't he too old to go trick-or-treating? So, so I try to find younger kids to go with so we can all go and I wouldn't feel so bad. And the greatest thing eventually was when my kids were old enough to go trick-or-treating and we all go together. So my best memories of trick-or-treating are with my kids, because I would do it up. I'd get them, the most ridiculous monster costumes and makeup, and as if they were doing a Hollywood production. I'd really get it all done, and I'd make myself up too, just because I wanted to get in the spirit of it. And we'd find neighborhoods. I remember one weekend we were at the Chiller Theater Expo in New Jersey, and we were spending the weekend there, but we took off like 2 hours and found a cool New Jersey neighborhood where, we got word that this is like the best block. And we all went and took a ride, left the convention, and for 2 hours, before sunset, we did a walk around. And that's a great memory, because we were already, decked out in Chiller Theater. We were already decked out in our costumes. So it was a case of just zipping out, grabbing some candy, having some fun, and then coming back to the convention.
So when did you first start making money off of your fascination with horror?
I can't wait till that happens, when I really make money on horror, so I don't have to do everything else. I'm a DJ by trade. I do parties, I do events, weddings, bar mitzvahs, that whole gamut, that whole shtick. And so that was always my main source of income. And when we started the tours, it was like, where do I want to go that I think other people might want to go? That was really the impetus of it. And I said, wow, if I can get, a handful of people to go, it'll pay for my trip. And it'll be worthwhile, never thinking that, oh, wow, there's a ton of people who want to go to Transylvania, who want to seek out the legend of Dracula, but also the history and all the great things that are connected and tied in with Vlad the Impaler and that, and that bloody history. So what I did is I came up with a schedule with some people in Romania, and we came up with all the things that I wanted to go and see and do. And I figured, if I'm going to be judged as the horror person who wants to go to these places, people in turn would want to go to these same places. And so we went to places like Snagoff Monastery, which is an island in a part of Transylvania that you have to, in those days, you'd have to row boats to. Now the land has been bought as seaside community, and it's a wealthy area, and it's motorboats. Then it was rowboats. And we'd go to Shigashora, where Vlad was born. We'd go to Bran Castle, which is so picturesque. When you think of Bran Castle, you think of all the Dracula movies. They use that as the setting. I think even Bram Stoker's Dracula with I forgot who was in it. That one uses that film. But the best is Ponary Castle, because that's the actual ruins where Vlad lived, where his wife, fell off or thrown off or jumped off the side of that's at the top of a mountain. You have to walk up many steps to get there, but the ruins are still there. So these are places that in 1 week we visited all. We combine the legend with the history. We make it fun. And we found out there were other trips that went, to the Transylvania region that were senior citizen trips. So people would get up, 7 a.m, have breakfast, do some sightseeing, come back for dinner, and that was it. They were done by 6, 7, 8 o'clock. Well, with us, that's when the parties begin. That's when we do clubs. That's when we do night stuff. That's when we have our wild parties, and a Halloween night, we actually do a dress-up party and all get decked out in our best, vampire outfits and horror costumes and all that. So this was something that was never done before. This filled a void for horror people who'd been to conventions, who read the books, who'd seen the movies, but wanted to do what we call the ultimate. And the ultimate was doing our Drac tours. And the Drac tours have been successful since 1998.
Wow.
The first few, we thought, whoa, this is amazing. We're going to continue to do it. And it was just a little margin I always put in from my trip or a guest trip, to the point that, we added a little money each time we would do it, so that it did start making money. And for a while, we were having 2 busloads, and we had over 100 people going. And it seemed that it peaked at about that point, because people who thought that was their bucket list thing, I think have done it. Most people who wanted to go on the Dracula tour have come with me and have done it. And now, so that kind of bled into, pun intended, a spin-off of ghost tours.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
ghost,
Before you get to the ghost tours,
yeah.
I know someone who went on one of your Drac tours,
Oh,
and yes, and we saw a picture of him earlier on while the pictures were running. That's Russell.
no, that's
That's our,
no, that's Count Russell. Count Russell.
yeah, Roussel. Yes, yes. But Russell, would you like to come in and add any comments about the tour?
Sure.
What?
I went on the 2005 Drac tour to Romania, and it was truly one of the best trips of my life. And I made friends on the tour. I originally was going to go with a friend, and she couldn't do it at the last minute, so I ended up going by myself. And I made a bunch of new friends, and we have stayed in touch. We actually went on a later tour on a ghost tour to England with Chucky, sorry. And we just had such a blast over there because I think we slept like 2 or 3 hours a night if we were
Maybe.
lucky. I mean, it was just nonstop. The first night we got there, we stayed in out on an island in this hotel that's been used in horror movies, and I don't think it's a hotel anymore. I think I've heard that it had changed, unfortunately, but it was truly an amazing experience. We got out there, the sun was setting, you could hear dogs howling in the distance out on the mainland.
They were
and
wolves. They were wolves.
They were wolves. and you were in this creepy old hotel. And of course, you've got a bunch of horror people. And we're the only ones there. And so we're going to go exploring. And the other thing that happened that year, I think we got out there and their water main had broken. And so we couldn't get showers. We'd been flying like all day, and we get there and there's no water. They're like, here's what we've got for dinner, but we can't really cook. And so it was just such a wild thing. And so I remember late at night, we all took flashlights and we were exploring all the parts of the hotel because nothing was locked. It was all just wide open. They didn't care. And we're in the basement, like digging through all their old stuff and looking for ghosts. And people claim that, I remember somebody said late at night their bed shook when there was no one around. And somebody else saw somebody dressed in old style military garb in the basement who, when they turned around, had disappeared. And
so that's the story that I actually tell when I do paranormal investigations. People say, were there any scary things that ever happened on your Drac tours and ghost tours? And I tell them about this hotel, which was formerly a prison, formerly a convent, and changed into a resort, but now it's a private country club, so people don't stay there. And you described it beautifully. We stayed there 2 years, and the year that we went, there was that couple who didn't go to dinner. And we were told we can explore, everything was unlocked, except the sub-basement. There was a sub-basement below the basement. Now, we had all finally gone to bed at 10 or 11 or midnight, whatever, and that's when that couple woke up because they had napped through dinner. And so they went down below to the bowels of this resort, and they were doing the same exploring, but they somehow got into this sub-basement, which was locked, padlocked, triple locked, and walked down, and it was like an endless tunnel, they said. And halfway through, they saw what they thought was a guard, and they went, oh my gosh, we're probably going to have to turn around now. And they just waved to him and said hello, and he was dressed in old-style military outfit. You described it pretty good. And then when they turned around, he wasn't there. And they thought, oh, that's weird. Maybe he continued on a separate door. Next morning, we're checking out. They're telling us this story at checkout. And the hotel clerk, his mouth drops and he turns white because he heard this story before, but never from a person who actually saw this ghost who roams the sub-basement. And this couple didn't know it was a ghost. So for them telling the story, they were nonchalant and naive. We saw this guard, and the hotel knew about this this ghost that really, really walks the land. So I'm glad you brought that up. We got to stay there 2 years, and then it changed over. And then I started opening up haunted attractions. So that at that point, I stopped hosting this tour. And I miss it so much because of all the tours I do and all the vacations. It was truly magical. It was mystical. It was scary. And as Russell said, lifetime friends are made on these trips who you think, oh, I'm never going to see them again. No, it's not true. We exchange Halloween and Christmas cards. We stay in touch on Facebook, and it's just that adds the element of what makes the trip so special.
Yeah, and
thank you, Russ. Thank you.
No, you're
Go
welcome.
ahead.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you,
All right.
Capuchon.
Yes. All right. So you've done the Drac tours and you've done the ghost tours. What other things have you done?
Well, I just want to tell you the genesis of the ghost tours was that all these people who went on the Drac tours with me had such a great time and said, we really don't want to go back there again. We've been up Borgo Pass and through the Carpathians. Can't you do something else? And I said, yeah, well, let's do sort of Drac tour part 2 and go to London and go to the places that Bram Stoker, where he wrote his material and Whitby Abbeys and all this great stuff. And we thought, well, we can expand upon that. We can do all of the haunted places in England. And then we were getting a core of like an A group who would come on all the trips. So I said, well, now went to England. Now we got to go to Scotland. And we ready for this, Amber? We did England, we did Scotland, we did Prague, we did Czech Republic, we did Hungary, about Romania, we did Cuba, we did Israel, we did all these amazing, I'm probably forgetting some. And the people are saying, well, when are we going to do France? When are we going to do? They're looking for new places to do. And we added a weekend in New Orleans. We've done weekends in Salem. So this is mostly because we have a core of friends and people who want to continue to hang out together. And it's only 20 or 30 people, but it's enough to make a trip worthwhile and to plan and to do all this and to get, a local tour guide. We had in Cuba. People say, what's haunted in Cuba? And I said, well, like Israel, what isn't haunted there? And the tour guides were so amazing that I'm hosting it, but they're teaching us the history and they're showing us these places where there were bloody battles and atrocities that happened in all these places. And, it's definitely horror at its worst because sometimes so much of it is true.
Are you still planning your tours with the COVID and everything?
So we skipped 2020 completely. We had planned a ghost tour to England again for the people who hadn't been with us on that. And we postponed that. We never cancel. It's always a postponement in the hopes that things are going to happen. And I don't know when this is going to air, but in the middle of November, we're doing our New Orleans ghost tour, which is hopefully going to happen. And there's about a dozen of us, but it's mostly people who've been on the trips before. And there is a Halloween Dracula tour this year. And it's a small group, only about 10 or 12, but they're going to have the greatest time of their lives. And then hopefully next year, things are back to normal.
What about, you have your book out about the 10 places, the top 10 horror list. Tell me some of those. What's on that list?
Well, I love giving you the introductions to how these things happen. So for years, I was writing an online column called National Horror Happenings. And that came about because I was doing the Drac tours and the ghost tours, and I wanted to maybe spread the reach. So, once a day, once a week, whenever I felt like it, I would go online, do National Horror Happenings. I'd review a movie I saw, or preview a movie, or write a review, or, talk about an actor. And in talking about an actor, I think he said, can I give you my top 10 favorite horror movies? And I go, oh yeah, great idea. And I thought, wait, let's make that a once a month thing. And I spoke to a friend of mine who runs conventions and said, hey, give me your top 10 list. I want you to be the first one I go online with. And then I did the actor. And in 2010, I produced something called Rock Con, Weekend of 100 Rock Stars. We had one of the Beach Boys there. We had Mary Wilson, she should rest in peace, from the Supremes, Tommy James, a lot of cool icons of rock and roll. And they were my guests at this event, 100 of them. And I said, hey guys, some of you, I need you to help me here. I do this list online. Give me your top. Some of them jumped all over it. Oh my gosh. Ron Dante from the Archies, the lead singer, gave me his top 10 list, and we called it Dante's Inferno. A lot of cool rock and rollers, the guitarist from Vanilla Fudge, bands that, obscure or famous. I said, this is great. I'm going to keep these on file forever. When the pandemic hit, I remembered these lists, and I had about 80 of them. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do a book. And I told my friends, and they said, you're doing a book? Oh, really? It's about time you read one. And I said, no, I'm writing a book. Hello. And I thought, well, I only need 20 more lists. So I got on the phone, I got on email, I got on Facebook. I did everything I could to reach 100. Because in my mind, if I did a weekend of 100 rock stars at RockCon, I needed to do the book of top 10 horror lists with 100 guests who gave me their things. So in the book, 100 celebrities have contributed, and it's crazy because it's people who you wouldn't even know loved horror movies, and some of them were clever. They did 10 scariest scenes in comedy horror movies. Someone else did the sexiest 10 scenes in horror movies. So it was variations of the theme. And I approached Boris Karloff's daughter. Boris Karloff, of course, the most famous of the Frankensteins, right? Where is he? Right there. And his daughter hated horror movies. And I said, well, I got to get a list from you. I want you represented in the book. And she said, well, I'm going to give you a list of the top 10 things that scare me. I said, okay. And number 10 was doing this list. So it's really great because you're not getting just a laundry list of 10 items, Psycho, Night of the Living Dead. You're getting the reasons why people loved each one. John Sebastian, Woodstock legend, who was the lead singer of Love and Spoonful, gave me a list of 4. But I put it in because he gave a paragraph with each one on why they were so monumental in his life. So, Ed Asner, the actor who just passed, gave me a list, wrote me a note. And he was the hardest one to get. I'd been tracking him down for a while. And in the note, it was something like, you do better detective work than Scotland Yard. You come up with 10 of them. And he gave me a handful. And that was great. It was worth putting in. But some of them were like John Lennon's sister, Julia Baird, gave me one. And hers, it could have been its own book. It was a thesis on the horrors of Shakespeare plays. And it was like, whoa, this is beyond, what our readership level. I didn't expect something this amazing. So it goes from that to the most basic of lists. And, it's just the coolest people. If you're a pop culture person, a baby boomer, if you love horror, if you love rock, any of the aspects of celebrity-dom, you're going to get a real cool list from all these people. And it's worth reading because it's just, some of them crack me up. Others are like, whoa, brilliant. There was a time where I was sending out a sample list, and I used the late actress Karen Black as a sample because she gave 10 great choices and maybe two or three sentences as to why she picked them. And I think that might have scared, excuse the word scared, but it might have scared off some potential people who wanted to submit lists because it was so well done. And they thought, oh my gosh, I want to be represented well in the book. I don't want to come off as, some jerk just putting in a line or two. So I think it might have turned off a few people who might have otherwise gave me a list because the example I used was so coherent and so brilliant. And there's a lot of brilliant one. And then there's others that are just funny and comical. Eddie Deason, who people don't know unless I tell them, it's Eugene in Greece. He's that Jerry Lewis funny guy character. He's been the voice in SpongeBob, Polar Express. He's in the movie I Want to Hold Your Hand. He's in the movie 1964. When you see him, you know him. And that's what's great about this book. A lot of the people, it's like, of course, I forgot about them. How are they doing? Ruth Buzzy from Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In gave me a list. And it's like, wow, yes, she's still alive. And yes, she gave me a great list. And she played a witch in one of those movies. And she listed herself in one of the movies. Corbin Burnson, the actor. Yeah, I can go on and on. Dave Winfield, the Baseball Hall of Famer. And we have like 4 or 5 Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, two members of the Cars, Little Anthony from Little Anthony and the Imperials, names that conjure up baby boomers' childhoods. And, these some of the rock stars who gave us the soundtrack of our lives are now, telling us their favorite horror themes. And it's a really special book, and I'm very proud of it.
What's next? You've got the book, you've got the tours. Anything else coming out?
So much. So I've teamed up with a gentleman by the name of Nick Grossman, who is a clairvoyant. He's an empath, a shaman. And we do presentations as the shaman and the showman. He's the shaman. I'm the showman. I host the show. I promote the show. I do all the schmoozing with the audience. And then I bring him on. And he does the most amazing. He'll put on cameras and you'll see orbs flying over people. It's really, it's a great theatrical presentation. But we also do visits. There's places throughout New England, as you know, that are notoriously haunted. So we'll bring groups there. we'll do an orientation. We'll have pizza first, and then we'll take the actual walks. And it's very limited. We don't put this out publicly. It's pretty much limited to people on our mailing list who have done these things before, because we produced Connecticut's first paranormal convention, which was Paracon. And Paracon, we thought, okay, we'll have 2 days. We'll have 100 people per day, maybe 10 vendors, palm readers, spiritualists, psychics. It'll be fun. Amber, we had 80 vendors and 1,500 people. So those are the people who we tell about our tours and our adventures. So it's just very exciting. That's and I plan to do a sequel to the book of Top 10 Horror List called Bride of the Book of Top 10 Horror List. And I'm already contacting, celebrities and fun people to get their lists. And we've already, got a great number of people who saw the book and now say, oh, I get it. I want to be in your next book. So maybe 2022, 2023, no rush. I want to do all the appearances for this. It's so much fun doing book signings. I'm in a lot of movies, believe it or not. And tonight, as we speak, is the Connecticut screening of a film called Night at the Eagle Inn. And I happen to play a cross-dressing the person who I'm listed as the debutante. And it's really creepy. It's really, I overdo the lipstick and I go a little berserk, and I'm only in the, probably on for 2 minutes, but it's a strong 2 minutes. So I called the theater and I called the film director and I said, hey, I've got a new book out. Can I do a book signing at the event? People will see me on screen. They'll walk out. We'll do a little meet and greet. I'll shake hands. I'll sanitize and I'll sign books. And so that's what I'm doing tonight. As we do our interview, I'm constantly lining up more interviews and book signings. It's so fun. It's so exciting. And I get to meet, people, kindred spirits is probably the best word, people who love the genre as much as I do. And so they're seeing like a fellow fan coming out with a book and being in all these movies. Here's some some films that on top is my character. Bottom here is a film called The Zombie Chronicles, where I'm shot in the head, which I love. Next to it, Dead Survivors, where I play a maniacal doctor with a cadaver jumping behind me. And so I really had a lot of fun being able to be an extra or get killed or do small scenes in films. In fact, this one is interesting. It probably doesn't fit on the genre here, but I got to play Elton John on HBO's Flight of the Conchords. So I made it to real TV and real life stuff. Patton Oswalt, the actor, and I were both competing Elton Johns. So if you ever get season 2, Flight of the Conchords, episode 7, called Prime Minister with Art Garfunkel, I'm in there playing Elton John.
Well, you know what? I want to be Cryptmaster Chucky when I grow up.
Yay!
Well, when you're planning your tours, think about Burlington, Vermont. We've got quite a history of ghost sightings in Burlington. We have a wonderful tour guide here that we'd love to hook you up with. She's fascinating, and you'd find some interesting things here in Burlington. Well, Cryptmaster Chucky, thank you so much. You're fascinating.
Thank you.
And I love your energy. I love your ideas, and I love your follow through. So congratulations, good luck, and safe travels, my friend.
Thank you so much. Anyone wants the book, it's available on Amazon, or they could contact me at the website and I'll personally inscribe and sign a copy. Can't leave without one more plug, right, Amber?
leave the cell. That's right. Thank you very much, Chuck.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Wow, that was fun. Back to you, Amber.